The second part of The Way of Kings introduces several new characters and teaches us a great deal about the world around them, as well as some of Kaladin's childhood. The book is so big, it even has interludes, which can feel disconnected from the story. All of this world building can be overwhelming to some readers, and it feels like the plot slows down a bit in this part. When I first read The Way of Kings, that's exactly how I felt. But this slow burn and setup is worth its weight in emerald gemstones as the story progresses. This makes it that much more important to understand this section of the book. This video will only cover the Stormlight Archive to the end of the second part of The Way of Kings, the first book in the series. Today we will unarchive the key details of part 2 of The Way of Kings, including the interludes between parts 1 and 2, as well as Kaladin's point of view chapters. This will complete our larger than normal review of part 2, so if you haven't checked out a review of the Kolins in part 2, add that video to your queue. But if you're ready to dive in here, let's begin. We'll start with the interludes, as they often set up some of the next part or details for later in the book. So while the interludes normally don't directly impact the mainline story of the parts, they do have importance to the overall story of this epic series. Usually at least one of the interludes between each part offers a perspective from a known character that we don't get to see too often, but we start this set of interludes with a new character. So let's start with the first interlude, I-1, from the point of view of Ishik. Ishik is a fisherman from the Pure Lake, a shallow reservoir of clear water hundreds of miles wide, but only 6 feet deep at its deepest. Though the water is always calm and warm, the floor of the lake is uneven, leading to unsteady footing when walking. Ishik knows how to manage his way though, as he has been a Pure Laker all his life. No rushing is necessary on the Pure Lake, even when late to a meeting. Ishik makes his way to meet a set of 3 foreigners at the home of a local cook named Mabe, who would like nothing more than for Ishik to settle down with her. Ishik has brought his meager fishing plunders, only a few common fish, but one special one that relieves aches and pains when consumed. Ishik calls the 3 foreigners Grump, Blunt, and Thinker for their personalities, and they don't seem like other people from the nations he assumes they are from. He does overhear them using a couple of their real names, Vow and Temu. Blunt laments that Ishik is late to their meeting, but Pure Lakers don't care about the hour of the day. Ishik relays that he has been to 4 villages this month in search of a man for the foreigners, but has turned up no leads. This is his 5th such month of searching for a man with white hair, clever tongue, and arrow-like face named Hoyd, without finding any trace of him. The foreigners are unhappy with the results, but reluctantly pay Ishik and leave grumbling in another language. Ishik contemplates letting Mabe catch him, then sets off to continue his fishing. While the rest of the book hardly relies on this chapter to build any sort of foundation, there are tidbits in here that are fun to notice after reading further or other works in the Cosmere. Ishik's viewpoint also serves to describe a new place on Roshar that we haven't explored yet and will likely explore in the future of the series. The second interlude focuses on Non-Balat, Shallan's eldest brother, who has remained at the Devar mansion while Shallan chases Yasna. The mansion is situated near the edge of the Horneater Peaks in southwestern Yak-Kaved, where vines grow rampant across most surfaces. Balat has a large axehound named Skrak, an animal that seems to act like a dog but has 6 legs, antennae, and hide that is somewhere between skin and shell. Balat has bred axehounds since he was young, but he has a nasty habit of picking on small animals, including dismembering crabs and kremlings to relax. Balat wonders if he is a coward, asking his pet whether she thinks he is one. He thinks of flimsy excuses and worries for Shallan, who had never left their home until her journey to become Yasna's ward and steal from her. Their father had been a hot-tempered man who drove the younger brothers, Yushu and Wakim, to gambling and depression respectively. The family once had another son, Helleran, who was the eldest brother and stood up to their father on many occasions. But both Helleran and their father are dead, and that left Balat as the eldest man of the house, 23 years old with a crippled leg, requiring a cane to walk for the rest of his life. While contemplating his situation and the worries for Shallan, Wakim comes to tell Balat that they have a significant problem. Non-Balat's interlude doesn't progress the main story either, but it does offer some indirect insight into the context around Shallan. We don't get any Shallan POV chapters in part 2, so the problem that Wakim alerts Balat to will have to wait until part 3. Beyond that, there's clearly much more to learn about the Devar family and how they fell into such a terrible situation. The final interlude of this set is from Szeth's perspective, a return to the POV from the prologue. Szeth's current owner is a miner named Took, who moves between small mining towns in Bavland. We join Szeth in a tavern with some of Took's friends nearly 6 years after killing King Gavilar. Took likes to show off Szeth's requirement to do whatever he commands, including forcing him to harm himself. Szeth is forbidden from taking his own life, so he must refuse Took's command to slit his own throat. The miner treats Szeth as a slave, which is his position as a truthless, but Szeth revels in the opportunity to be wasted on menial tasks like cleaning or hard labor. Szeth is still haunted by the night he killed Gavilar and wonders many times why the Parshendi told him to kill, destroy, and cut your way to the king, be seen doing it, leave witnesses, wounded but alive. While Took tells the miners some exaggerated stories, we learn about Szeth's time since the events of the prologue. Szeth would rather not kill, and it has been years since he summoned his shard blade. On the night of the assassination, the Parshendi tossed Szeth's Oathstone away, leaving him to retrieve it. Szeth's Oathstone is used to determine his master. Whoever holds it is in control of him. The stone is a simple piece of rock with a few quartz crystals set into it and a rusty vein of iron on one side. Szeth was picked up by a merchant, not knowing he was taking in the murderer of the king, on the side of a road outside Kholinar. The merchant traveled westward to neighboring Yakaved with Szeth in his wagon, away from the Alethi and the Parshendi, who fled east to the Shattered Plains. During his time there, Szeth hid the strange sphere Gavilar gave him in his last moments. Although he does not know what it is, he wants to keep it secret from everyone after Gavilar said they must not get it. Szeth has been passed between dozens of masters since that night in Kholinar, as they always passed him on for one reason or another. Szeth hypothesizes that it is because they could understand he is more than what he shows on the surface. What would these men say if they knew that the man who emptied their chamber pot was a shard bearer and a surge binder, a windrunner like the Radiance of old? The moment he summoned his blade, his eyes would turn from dark green to pale, almost glowing sapphire, a unique effect of his particular weapon. We already know Szeth as a shard bearer from the prologue, but some of these other terms are new to us. We have only seen the term Surgebinder once in the prelude from 4,500 years ago, and Windrunner is a completely new term, closely associated with the Knights Radiant. We'll have to keep reading to understand these more, but it is clear Szeth classifies himself into these categories. After drunkenly showing off, Took leaves the tavern with Szeth, but on their way down the streets, Took is killed by a group of footpads. Szeth is left unharmed due to the men thinking Shin people are harmless. When the thieves take Took's possessions, Szeth is forced to inform them of the Oathstone and their power over him. The murderer with it in his hands is very eager to take advantage of this, foreshadowing a return to days of killing for Szeth in his future. This is the second point of view chapter for Szeth, and it is more important than the other two interludes of this section, though most of the details are not needed to understand the rest of this book. Szeth's path will be important, and we will see him again under his new murderous master in an interlude after part 2. Now we'll get into the main storyline with Kaladin struggling in Bridge 4 as an immediate continuation from where we left him at the end of part 1. After deciding to continue on and save the bridgeman, Kaladin takes the position of bridge leader. Kaladin begins saving his weekly payments to spend on bandages and other supplies so he can mend the bridgemen who fall injured during bridge runs. He also starts practicing carrying heavy wood beams in the lumberyard near the bridge crew barracks to rebuild muscle and stamina. Kaladin attempts to get other bridgemen to join him, but each one declines, continuing their behavior of apathy and resistance towards his leadership. On the next bridge run, he takes Rock's place at the front center of the bridge, saying it's his right as bridge leader to take the most dangerous spot. The rest of the men in the front of the bridge are taken down by arrows quickly, but Kaladin escapes with only small cuts. He then collects the few wounded but alive members of Bridge 4 and takes care of them as well as he can. Kaladin has the healthy members carry the injured bridgemen back to camp on top of the bridge, a practice Kaladin is forced to bribe Gaz to allow. Despite the bribe, the wounded bridgemen are restricted from pay and food until they are working again. So Kaladin convinces Rock and Teft to split their food for the injured, as well as help him gather knobweed reeds during their labor duty to sneak back to camp. Here, Kaladin learns that Rock can see Syl as he bows to her to show respect, which she very much appreciates. Back at camp that evening, the three men take the reeds to the honor chasm to extract their sap into bottles, which can be used as an antiseptic. Kaladin is able to get Rock to tell the story of how he became a bridgeman. His Horn-Eater leader challenged Sadeas to a duel for his shard plate, but died in the duel, meaning all of his retinue became property of Sadeas. While cooking meals for Sadeas as his new personal chef, Rock put Chul Dung into many of the High Prince's dishes, ending with a sentence to run bridges. To this point, Rock's is the only story Kaladin has been able to pry free of Bridge 4. Kaladin later takes the collected sap to the apothecary, where he confronts the man for attempting to price gouge him. He is able to get a large return for the knobweed sap, giving him resources he badly needs to help the bridgemen. Considering the money he just earned, he could attempt to flee on his own, but recommits to saving Bridge 4. On Bridge 4's next labor assignment, Chasm Duty, Kaladin brings a couple more bridgemen out of their shell. They are set to salvage equipment and spheres from the corpses of battles washed towards the war camps by high storms. Kaladin picks up a spear and performs a kata, a warrior's practice display that stuns the bridgemen. Until now, all but 3 men have resisted Kaladin's leadership. Once they return from the depths, Kaladin and Rock buy a cauldron and ingredients to make stew for Bridge 4. The combination of a fire and warm food lures each of the reluctant bridgemen out from the barrack, and Kaladin realizes that the men are finally his. Aside from that present-day plotline, we learn much more about Cal's childhood from the flashbacks in Part 2, including more about his family's position in Hearthstone. The first flashback of the part starts with Kaladin revealing to Laurel that his father plans to send him to Kharbranth to become a surgeon. Laurel is the daughter of Bright Lord Wistio, the city lord of Hearthstone. Laurel is disappointed that Kaladin won't be heading off to be a soldier, potentially becoming a Light Eyes by winning a shard blade. Throughout their interaction, Laurel is clearly hinting at Kaladin and her becoming a couple. As children, they have played together despite her Light Eyes. Kaladin is going through puberty and finds Laurel entrancing, but doesn't pick up on many of the changes from the adolescent girl. Cal's family is of the second Non, a high rank for Dark Eyes, but still Dark Eyes, so it is unlikely the two youths will end up together. Tien, Cal's younger brother, joins them and begins looking for small creatures hiding in their cocoons. Tien immediately brightens Kaladin's mood, which baffles Laurel how he can do that regardless of the situation. Laurel notices a group of boys released from their duties in the fields and takes Kaladin to investigate them. Kaladin ends up offending one of the boys, and they spar with quarterstaffs. Kaladin initially loses, but fights on, feeling like the length of wood in his hands was right. Though he is beaten soundly, Kaladin begs the boy to teach him in exchange for some field work during his off hours. The boy refuses, saying Kaladin's father would kill him for it. During the fight, Laurel wanders off to her family's mansion, distracted by something. Cal is forced to walk home, but Tien gives him a rock with colorful markings that appear when the rock is wet, slightly bolstering Cal's mood. It's at home where Kaladin learns from his father that Bright Lord Wistio has died. Lyrin explains that Wistio left a goblet of spheres to pay for Kaladin's way to Kharbranth to learn to be a surgeon, to then come back to Hearthstone to care for the people of the town. Kaladin continues to contemplate his path with his father's plans and how he felt fighting with the quarterstaff, not knowing what he really wants for himself. About 2 months later, Cal is attempting to save a young girl who had fallen, causing a compound leg fracture. Cal is only 13, and he is trying to perform a miracle in front of a crowd of townspeople. Despite his best efforts and his father's training, Kaladin is unable to save the little girl, and her father shoves Cal aside in anguish. Cal goes home and sits outside the surgery room, crying until his father approaches. Lyrin ensures his son that he is proud of him, proud that he acted. But the lesson from Lyrin in this moment is that Kaladin must learn when to care and when to let go, because he will not always succeed in saving his patients. Weeks later, Kaladin overhears people calling what he and his father do unnatural, and Cal complains to his mother, Hasina, that they are hated in town. Hesina tries to encourage Kaladin in his path toward becoming a surgeon, but Kaladin is still very uncertain. Lirin alerts the two that the new city lord has arrived, and they collect Tien to join the rest of the town in the square to greet the man. Roshon rides up in a carriage and only briefly shows his face to the crowd before turning back out of the rain. But Lirin asks the Bright Lord how his trip was and if they can show him the town. Roshon disdainfully responds, blaming Lirin for his being in the small rural town because the surgeon failed to save Wistio. Clearly, this new situation is less beneficial to Cal's family than when they had a good relationship with the City Lord, but we'll need to keep reading to see what this means for Cal's path to Bridge 4, where he continues to fight to save the Bridgemen. Alright, so that was a lot of new stuff in a single part, including the Kolins and the Shattered Plains, which we covered in the previous video. What's on the way in Part 3? First, the interludes before Part 3 include points of view from Risen, a Thaylen merchant apprentice, Axes the Collector, who catalogs Spren, and of course Zeth, the assassin in white. In the main part, Dalinar and Adolin's story is put on pause until Part 4, and we rejoin Shallan and Yasna in Kharbranth. Kaladin's attempts to save Bridge 4 will continue, and we'll learn much more about his past. Sanderson likes a 5-act story, so there is a climax coming at the end of Part 3 to fit that structure. Part 3 was where I fully bought in and realized this series is for me, and I hope you feel the same. Come back for the Part 3 video once you've read through Chapter 51. Now that we've covered the Kolins in the previous video and the interludes and Kaladin here, we're ready to move on to the world building in Part 2, and then on to Part 3. Did you enjoy the interludes? What are your thoughts on Kaladin and Bridge 4 up to this point? Let me know in the comments, but watch your spoiler tags for the new readers. If you think I left something out, misrepresented anything, or you still have questions about this part of the book, post that in a comment as well. These videos wouldn't be possible without the awesome fan art from the incredible artists of the Cosmere community. Links to each of the artists' accounts can be found in the description. Check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe for future videos. After all, we need to unarchive all these secrets.